Hello, everyone. Uh, this is Alexander Zapata, and in today's video presentation, I'm going to be discussing my writing revision history. So, so here's an overview of what I'm going to talk about in this presentation. So first, I'm going to introduce myself and explain some of my history with revision. I'm also going to discuss what revision is to me, how I perceive it, and explain how some misconceptions I've had about revision during pretty much any time I wrote something. Then I'm going to discuss an important tool when it comes to revision, a tool that's helped me more times than I personally admit, which is feedback. Then I'm gonna explain two of my revision examples. These two revision examples were among some of my most helpful in creating very excellent quality written works, and even taught me some valuable lessons about feedback. Then I'm going to conclude with a reflection on how feedback has pretty much been the main driving force behind my motivation to revise my work. And for those of you who need it, I'm going to show you the citations for some of my written works. So some of the written works that influenced this thing, all of which were my originals. So first, an introduction. My name is Alexander Zapata, or Xander as I prefer to be called. That's me on the left there. That's me dressed as the Archangel Gabriel. So while I might not look like it in the photo, I am an English major, and I aspire to become an author. I love telling stories, and writing is one of the best ways I can tell stories. Storytelling is an art for me. Some people use paints to do it. Some people use musical notes. Other people may even use food. But my paints are the letters of the alphabet. Of course, not every piece of writing is perfect. You see, part of the job of being an English major and an aspiring author is that I have to do multiple revisions. I have to do a lot of rewriting and editing. And while it does help make more clean, finished products, I have had trouble with the revision process. This is less to do with understanding what I need to do, and more so a matter of pride. You see, like other authors, I do take pride in my written work, and whenever I hear that something I wrote isn't good enough, or has a wrong idea, or something that just doesn't work, it's hard for me to hear it. But while it is a bit of a bummer to obtain that kind of feedback, that feedback is what ultimately begins the revision process for me. Feedback is pretty much my greatest and most well-used tool in my college years, kind of like it's going to be in my career as an author. And while I may be reluctant to revise my work, I still want to produce the best writing possible, which is what revision helps me to achieve. So what revision is to me? So basically, whenever I learn that something I feel like, whenever I learn that something I wrote is not perfect and needs to be edited, I feel like what someone is telling me is that they don't like what I've written and to delete it all and try again. Which can be, which no one uses those words at all, I've learned so far, but that's what it always feels like to me. And those words can be devastating to an author if they were spoken like that. But the truth is, whenever someone is pointing out certain glaring errors, I'm actually being offered advice and a chance to make my work better. Now, because I have a hard time noticing flaws in my writing, specifically things like grammar errors, poor word choice, bad content, and other things, I usually think that what I've written is fine. That being said, revising is a key step in the writing process, which is why I typically have a test reader. Now, a test reader is pretty self-explanatory. It's kind of similar to a test audience for a movie theater. What a test reader is you give someone your manuscript or your rough draft of a story, and it's okay if it's really rough. So you take a rough draft and you have them read through it, and you obtain feedback from them. Now, depending on who your test reader is and the quality of your work, the feedback you receive may be either excellent comments or necessary edits. But basically, feedback enables my revision process. For those who read my, you see, I enjoy it when people read my work, and hearing what people have to say about my writing gives me the feeling that people care about what I write. Listening to the suggestions people make about my writing drives me to improve my work so that it is more coherent for my readers. Now, with their constructive feedback and criticism, I can figure out ways to improve the draft without having to sacrifice too much of what I have written. While my typical revision process includes a team of proofreaders and a grammar checker, this has not always been the case. You see, back in my freshman and sophomore years at the College of Southern Nevada, there were other ways I was required to incorporate additional revision processes to my work. And that's where the revision examples come in. So my first revision example is smart thinking tutoring. So in several of my English classes at CSN, I was required to submit my rough drafts to Smart Think tutoring. I mostly did this as part of the assignment requirements, but I was still able to obtain tips on how to improve my papers. Whenever I submitted a rough draft to SmartThink, I was required to input 2 focal points I want a tutor to focus on during their revision during their revision of my work. I would later receive an email notification with some feedback in the form of both in-text annotations and an introductional endnote. They would always do their best to give me feedback on my 2 requested criteria, plus a third one of their choosing. There was at least one instance where they ignored one of my chosen criteria to focus on an instance where to focus on a bigger flaw, but that sidetracking still helped me realize a bigger glaring error that I did not see earlier. Smart thinking tutoring gave me what I need to make revisions and help me craft better papers. And I learned a lot about the revision process from their suggestions. It helped me to know what was expected from a well-written paper. Now, here's an example from an experience from my one of my final classes at CSN, my final English classes. So, most of the time, my use of SmartThink tutoring was a requirement for an assignment. After obtaining the feedback, I was also required to submit the document containing said feedback to my professors as proof that I had used SmartThink tutoring. But even when I was not required to use SmartThink, I still sent my work there as it was an effective tool for obtaining feedback and making necessary edits that I would have otherwise never implemented. So on the right, I have 2 text boxes on the right, which showcase an instance of feedback and an adjustments. So this particular feedback was for the Villanelle poem Under the Hill. And so as you can see here in the top text box, the one that says before revisions, I start off by explaining what a villanelle is, and in the bold texts that are featured in the brackets, ask the question, what are examples of rhyming words that are used, and told me to add examples to strengthen my claim about how the poem follows the structure of a villanelle. So I incorporated those words in the after revision section. As you can see, there is no bold brackets text, but instead there's a new string of text that wasn't there in the original paper. So after I explained the rhyming pattern of a villanelle, I explained the rhyming words that are used for A1 being sound and A2 being found. Then I explain an example of the rhyming word of the first B, which is night. And the next rhyming words of the next stanzas are surround, sybarite, and the last word being sound, which is the same for which is the same in the first stanza. Now I implemented them. Now I wouldn't have implemented those changes if the smart thinking tutor hadn't discovered them. I would have just assumed that the reader knew what I was talking about when they probably wouldn't have. I mean, I can't even name a single person who would know about the Villanelle or Heinz's Under the Hill. Anyway, on to my next revision experience, which has to do with my Com 101 persuasive speech, which I have posted a link to in the description if you're curious about that. So, for that speech at CSM, my classmates and I were required to do 3 things for that particular speech. First, I had to select a topic. Second, I had to submit that topic to the discussion forum. Then, I had to reply to peers on whether we agreed, disagreed, or felt unsure about a topic. So, my chosen topic was persuading an audience to give a small portion of their earnings to a child in one of the less fortunate countries of the world, essentially sponsoring them. And I even explained other child charity programs that could be useful and making the world a better place. But even though all they had was my topic, I still got plenty of comments on how I could make my topic more persuasive. However, while I did get a lot of feedback from that, there was one student who missed the point of my topic. I'm not gonna mention his name because for confidentiality reasons and because I just don't remember his name. But here's the thing. When he read my topic, he thought I was trying to persuade people to adopt a child. I ignored that piece of peer feedback because it wasn't as relevant to my topic as he thought, but it did teach me that not all feedback is helpful. I mean, just because someone says something that may improve a text doesn't mean it'll actually improve it, or maybe it just missed the point you were trying to make. Reflecting on these experiences, I came to realize that all of my revision processes were initiated by the feedback I received. You see, as I mentioned before, I love it when people read what I write. And hearing what people have to say about my work just makes me want to continue writing. It makes me want to make something I wrote much better. It does feel good to receive positive feedback, it's the negative feedback that makes me want to rewrite and do edits and stuff like that. Well, I do feel bad about taking apart certain pieces of my work. It is also important to the writing process. You see, without revision, what people write would not feel as well assembled as it should be. People wouldn't have thought things all the way through. Now, it can be difficult for me to think things through as a student with autism, but that's no excuse for missing a crucial detail that I could have fixed later. But anyway, I'm thankful for the revision, as it helps me refine my words and makes what I want to write closer to the masterpieces that I wish to create. And throughout my writing, I cannot wait to obtain more tips about the revision process. I want to improve my writing process even more, and hopefully Dr. Herzl-Betz's class can do that for me. I've learned so much already, and I want to keep learning as I continue my writing work. Hope maybe I might even be maybe I might even get to the point where something I write doesn't need any significant changes. That's what all authors seem to aspire to do. That's what I'm going to aspire to do too. Revision can help make better first drafts, and peer review and the feedback that comes with it is what ultimately gears the writing process. So here are some of my works cited. So as you can see here, this is the SmartThink tutoring response that I got for that essay on the villanelle, and the middle one is a YouTube video about the smart thinking tutoring experience. I'll leave a link to that down below in case you're curious, and the bottom one is my Com 101 persuasive speech. I'll leave a link to that down below as well in case you're curious. Anyway, thank you for listening to my discussion about the about my experience with the revision process, and have a nice day.